Hey guys, welcome back to T-Bones Tech. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing the brand new Canon SL3. The body only price tag is going to run you around $550, and if you want to pick up the kit 18-55mm lens, it's going to run you an extra $100, bringing the total up to $650 for this camera with the lens. So first up, we're actually going to go ahead and talk about the sensor. This sensor is going to be a 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, and it's actually going to be the exact same sensor found in cameras like the Canon 80D and the Canon T7i. And both those two cameras are wildly popular, and rightfully so. They have very good image quality coming out of that 24 megapixel sensor, and the Canon SL3 has that sensor. So as far as image quality between these three cameras, the SL3 is going to be the exact same as all these cameras. Very good image quality out of an APS-C size sensor. This Canon SL3 actually packs Canon's Digic 8 image processor inside, and that's actually going to be a much better processor than found in the Canon 80D or the Canon T7i. That's going to give us the ability to shoot 4K video and also to get very nice low light pictures. So on the SL3 we can shoot from ISO 100 all the way to ISO 25600. The SL3 has a 3-inch variable angle touchscreen, which is going to be extremely handy, and I love these screens. They're super easy to take pictures up high or potentially even pictures down low, and they're also going to be great for vlogging because you can flip it around and actually see yourself while filming, and it's just going to be a very good touchscreen, and the quality is definitely very good, and it's definitely going to be something that you're going to find yourself using all the time. Probably the biggest downside of this camera is the fact that it only has 9 autofocus points when looking down the mirror. So when you're focusing down the mirror, you're only going to have 9 autofocus points, where other cameras have many more, and that's just going to be the one thing that's going to kind of cripple this camera. But it seems that more and more people are actually using the dual pixel AF, and you can use that dual pixel AF to tap to focus on different faces and then just take a picture while looking down at the screen, and people are doing that a lot more. And if you're autofocusing like that, you're not going to deal with the 9-point system that's used in the viewfinder. So you're actually probably going to get better and more accurate focusing when using the screen than when using the viewfinder, and that's just going to be the biggest downside of the SL3. So if you love taking pictures with the viewfinder with automatic focus on, you're probably not going to want to pick up this camera. This SL3 has both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and that means that you can connect it to your smartphone with Canon's Camera Connect app, and you can actually use your smartphone as a live remote and take pictures, and you can actually see what the camera's looking at. It's actually a very useful tool, which I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy. It makes this camera very fun to use. And with that app, you can actually transfer photos from your camera straight to your smartphone and then share them to Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you share your pictures. This camera can shoot 4K video, and it can shoot that 4K video at 24 frames a second. It can't shoot at 30 or 60, only 24 frames a second. There's actually going to be a decent amount of rolling shutter, and the image quality is not going to be that good because unfortunately you're not going to have Canon's dual pixel, face tracking AF when filming 4K video with the SL3. You're going to be stuck with a contrast detect AF, and if you guys want to see a full video test that I made with this Canon SL3, check it out in the cards. It should be, I think, over there or over there. It'll send you to my full video test of the SL3, where I really go in depth into the 4K video capabilities of this camera. But this camera can also shoot 1080p video, and it can shoot 1080p video at 60 or 30 frames a second. And I really like to shoot 1080p at 60 frames a second because it can actually slow it down by 50%, so it's going to be twice as smooth and twice as slow, and I'm actually not going to drop any frames if I'm exporting to a 30 frames per second project, and that's going to be really handy and very nice. And the 1080p video on this camera is very good, and we don't really deal with any rolling shutter issues when filming 1080p video, so it's going to be a very good 1080p shooter, but unfortunately the 4K isn't going to be quite there yet. This camera also does have Canon's eye detect AF, and it's going to be very handy. It is actually going to focus on the eye that's closest to the camera. That's going to be fantastic for portraiture, and it actually works very good on this camera, and definitely sets it aside from some of these other cameras that are even more expensive than it, and it's going to be using that brand new Digic 8 image processor to do so, and I definitely recommend it. As far as build quality goes, the Canon SL3's build quality isn't going to be really that good. It's a little underwhelming. All the buttons actually feel pretty decent. They're the same as the Canon SL2, but the overall build quality seems a little bit cheaper than I definitely expected. It's going to have a manual flash. So normally with most DSLRs, when the camera calls for the flash, it's just going to pop up automatically, but not on the SL3. You're actually just gonna have to flick it open with your thumb like this. It's gonna be a little bit pain in the neck, and it just kind of shows this camera's build quality is a little bit cheaper. But Canon did put 4K video in this, and that was very expensive, so it seems like they cut corners in other ways to be able to put 4K video in a camera that only costs $550. but that is definitely a downside. The quality just isn't as good as I'd like it, and also they drop support for manual flashes. So unfortunately here on the hot shoe, you can no longer use manual flashes. You're going to have to use much more expensive, $200 or Canon $500 flashes, flashes that are actually going to communicate with the camera body. And that again is going to be a big downside because a lot of people like just picking up $40 flashes or maybe old flashes that they had, 20 years ago, and you're just not going to be able to use those on this camera. And it's just another downside of the SL3 that's kind of needless. Canon didn't need to cut corners like this. As far as actually using the camera, I actually really do enjoy shooting on a nice small DSLR like this. It's very refreshing to have a small camera like this and have it not be mirrorless camera. And just a really fun shooter, and you can change settings like the ISO easily when looking down the viewfinder, and you can also change the aperture when looking down the viewfinder. There's going to be shortcuts here which are going to be very handy and nice. And as far as battery life, this camera has very, very good battery life. You can actually shoot about 1,000 pictures on a single battery life, which actually doubles the Canon SL2, and I believe it's actually higher than the Canon T7i, and that actually brings it very close to the Canon 80D, which I believe can shoot maybe 1,200 frames, but it's right up there, even though it has a much smaller battery than the Canon 80D, and that's really nice. The SL3 also has a 3.5mm microphone input, so you can put a shotgun microphone on top to get much better audio, and that's very nice to see on a affordable camera like this. It makes it much more professional for when shooting video. As far as using the SL3 for sports, this camera can shoot 5 frames per second, which is actually pretty decent. It's going to be a little bit less than the T7i and the Canon 80D, but it's definitely very respectable and will definitely get the job done in a pinch. This camera is actually great for beginners. The guided menu is going to really help you learn photography even if you don't know anything about it. It's actually going to allow you to manually adjust settings and tell you why you want to manually adjust those settings. It's just going to be absolutely fantastic to learn on. I say for any beginner photographer who is just trying to learn photography and doesn't know anything at all, I would definitely pick up a Canon camera. It's going to be great for learning. And as far as the kit 18 to 55mm STM lens go, it's actually a very good lens. It is going to have a variable aperture, which is okay for beginners, but professional photographers are going to want a consistent aperture. Its fastest aperture is going to be f4, and then when you zoom all the way out to 55mm, it's going to stop down one stop to f5.6, and that's going to make your pictures a little bit darker, but that's definitely to be expected with a kit lens. And for the extra $100, I'd probably just pick up this lens instead of upgrading to anything too crazy and spending an extra $700 when you don't know the camera yet. I'd pick up this lens, I'd use it, learn the camera, and it's overall going to take pretty decent pictures. It's going to be pretty decent at everything, but it's not going to be great for anything. 18mm is going to be pretty wide, and then 55mm is actually going to be pretty decent for portraits. And again, it's just going to be a overall decent lens, and it actually is going to be image stabilized, and it's going to be pretty good for video with that image stabilizer. And again, just overall a decent starter lens. Overall, I really do like this Canon SL3. It's going to be a great camera for beginners. It's going to really help you learn photography, and it's going to be nice and lightweight with very good image quality and a ton of cool features like Wi-Fi and NFC, and it's just going to overall be a very good shooter with very high quality images. And it's going to be a little better than the Canon SL3 with its 4K video and Canon's iDetect AF, and it's going to have a couple downsides like the build quality, compared to something like the Canon SL2, but I think it's actually probably worth the trade-offs to pick up the Canon SL3 over the Canon SL2 if you don't already have one and you're trying to choose between the two. But if you already have the Canon SL2, I probably wouldn't recommend stepping up to the Canon SL3 unless you really need 4K video. I would just stick with the Canon SL2. But that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up down below and let me know what do you guys think about the Canon SL3. I'm definitely interested to know. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you all in the next one.